Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back. My voice is a little choppy, guys, so um, I'm going to let the computer read for me, okay? And this will be the end of day two, and we will continue with day three, hopefully tonight or tomorrow. I'm just waiting for the court reporter. I don't know, it's like she's playing games with me. So if you would like to donate to the RSK Trial Transcript Fund, you can cash at me at DivaDivineLight or Robert Keller at Robert Keller 83 or at Miss Love at dollar sign this blessed house. I will leave the information in the description box for anyone who would like to donate. So I will be collecting. Atmos Love Zone will be collecting, and Robert Keller will be collecting. So if you guys could donate to any one of us, that would be great. So we can get these transcripts day by day as they come, how they come. This reporter, I don't know what's going on, but she's taking a long time. I don't know what's going on. So I'm going to let the computer read out the I'm going to let the computer read out the rest of the transcript, okay? And for those of you who had donated and would like copies of the transcript, please email me at diva.josh.32332 at gmail.com. I will leave all the information in the description box. Before we start, I just wanted to present to you Lizette Martinez, who had wrote a letter to R. Kelly that hopefully maybe one day he will actually see this and listen to her words. Okay?
Dear Robert, it is with great sadness as I sit here and type this letter. It has been 20 years since I last spoke with you, and a lot has happened in both my life and yours. I wish I never had to write this letter, but unfortunately, here we are. I met you as a young girl who had stars in her eyes, an innocent girl, A girl who didn't know any better. A girl who longed for someone to love her and help make her dreams come true, so she could get away from all the people who were hurting her. You turned out to be the one who would hurt me the most. I never got over that hurt. I don't think you understand, or maybe you don't care, how much your actions hurt young women. The age of 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. The experiences that we go through set the stage for the rest of our lives. It is like walking around with a scarlet letter on my chest. It happened. I lived through it, but it doesn't go away. It's always there. I came out to the world about you because I could not bear to hear all the stories of physical, mental, and emotional abuse that still continues 20 plus years later. When it happened to me, I thought, okay, well, maybe it was me. I actually blamed myself for so long for the abuse. Can you believe that? What happened to you? All the conversations about how much you suffered as a child, yet you don't get help to deal with this dis-ease. You go on to seek young women to fill your sick desires. You were sexually abused. Hey, I get it. So was I. But I didn't turn out to be an abuser. It's time this ends, Robert. The music is great. No one can deny that. But the legacy is tainted. All those times you spoke of how much you wish your mom was alive to see how big you made it to. Do you think she would be proud today? Your children, what about them? Don't you think they are hurting hearing that their dad is a predator? I'm not attacking you. I'm past that. It has never been me. Never spoke to anyone besides my family about what I lived through with you. Never sued you. I loved you wholeheartedly. You hurt me. I'm grown. It's okay, I survived. I ask, I plead with you. Let the young women go home so they can get the help they need. What if you were Tim Savage? Ever ask yourself that? What do you expect from the parents? I pray that you get the help you need. Stop spreading diseases and seeking young women to fulfill your sexual deviancy. It's time this ends. Please.
So when cameras are excluded, what you get sketches. Take a look. I've got a sketch for you tonight. This one from federal courts in Brooklyn, New York. The trial of R&B superstar R. Kelly continuing today. Court TV legal correspondent Julie Janae joining us live from Brooklyn tonight with the latest from today's testimony. Again, Jane Doe, number 5, center stage, Julie.
Center stage, and today she withstood nearly 5 hours of cross-examination, stiff questions from the defense attorney for the defendant. Deborah O'Canic did that cross-examination, and he asked her a lot of pointed questions, honing in on her parents and how much consent they may have given to her relationship with the defendant that lasted for 4 years, and also bringing up often the fact that she lied about her age initially when she met him. This, of course, is after more than a day of testimony that this jury heard about the abuse that she suffered while she was there, allegations that she was controlled and she was subject to demeaning rules. But about her parents, here are some of the highlights that the defense was able to get her to admit on cross-examination: that her parents proposed a number of business deals to Kelly, including a Bluetooth sex toy that would play R. Kelly music when it was in use. That was something that he did not ultimately collaborate with them on. Also, that during her relationship with him, her mother tried to get a job with Kelly as an assistant or a driver, but she denied that her mother told her to take pictures and get blackmail information on Kelly. There was also an incident that was recounted again during cross-examination about her first time alone with the defendant in a Dolphin Hotel. She was supposed to go there for an audition, but after some time there in that hotel room, the police came. And this is what the exchange was like on cross-examination. Devereaux Canick saying that when those police officers came, because her parents had reported her missing, you didn't tell Kelly enough of this. I'm leaving with these officers, correct? Jane Doe said yes. Canick asked, you continued the sexual encounter after the officers left. She agreed. She said that Kelly actually asked her to disrobe, wanted to have oral sex with her before she actually auditioned, but she said she felt violated, she felt uncomfortable, but she did stay there with him. Even though those officers came and asked her for her age, she told them she was 18. Another thing that the defense is trying to show this jury about what was happening in the Kelly household is that this was a family operation. They showed pictures were shown to the prosecutors of the Atlanta home. But here's a little bit of that exchange. He asked her, you all operated like a family. She said she wouldn't call it that. He said, you did call it a family back then. She said it was a controlling one. So again, those photos of the Atlanta house where Kelly lived with his family, there was also a guest house that was about 15 miles away where his live-in girlfriends stayed. There's the main house, and then you'll see the guest house. Canick asked her on the stand, didn't you all live together, eat together, go to the movies together? This was an operation, a household of a family. They're trying to put forward to this jury that this was unconventional, but it was a relationship that came with roles and responsibilities.
Unbelievable day. And I think, the defense doing a decent job there on cross-examination, bringing out some of this information. Julie Janae, stand by. Let's bring back in our think tank. Still with us, Ann Bremner, Michael Sterling, Al Wunsch. Michael, Atlanta. I presume you've never been to that house. It sounds like a house of horrors for some people. But how about this issue of Jane Doe's parents being involved, pitching R. Kelly the Bluetooth sex toy and other business? We're getting into Michael Jackson territory here.
Family is.
Vinny, I've never been inside the house, but I've been by there and examined the house. As you know, I represented one of the R. Kelly victims. I think what the defense is trying to do here is to demonstrate, one, that it was voluntary to be inside the house, two, that there was a motive for this. There's a motive or a bias for this particular alleged victim to come forward and testify against R. Kelly, that they were trying to somehow set him up or get a job from him, that there's some sort of bias or motive for this victim. And so, I think, these are sort of, par for course, so to speak, in terms of trying to wean away at the credibility of a particular witness and trying to somehow show if the bias or motive for them to testify, or there was a bias or motive for them to do with R. Kelly, or in other terms, they did it voluntarily. They were with him voluntarily. She wanted to be with him, and she lied about her age, so R. Kelly wouldn't have had any knowledge that she was underage because she initially lied about it. So they're trying to somehow make a case for themselves.
How big of an issue is that, Al? The fact that Jane Doe, number 5, lying about her age. Police come, she lies to police, and then consensually continues with R. Kelly afterwards.
I don't think that that's big of a deal. I don't think that means a whole heck of a lot. This tragedy of this is this Jane Doe has been victimized not only by R. Kelly, but victimized by her own parents. This is ridiculous that the parents are sitting back and allowing this. If I'm a juror, I don't know if I'm necessarily think this is scoring points. It's making this girl more pathetic and more tragic. The fact that she lied happens all the time. Ben, we used to have some phony IDs to get into the clubs down in Belmar and back in the old days. I know, but statute of limitations has passed. So we're good. But with regards to lying about the age, where are the cops not asking for ID? You get asked all the time for ID. Why didn't the cops turn around and say, well, you know what, show me some ID. Let me see how old you are. They didn't do it. So they didn't do their job. Our parents haven't done their job. And R. Kelly is really doing some job on this Jane Doe number 5.
And Bremner, I heard you chime in when I said Michael Jackson. The attack, there was a lot of an attack on the parents in that trial. We know how that one turned out. What are your thoughts tonight?
Exactly. I was thinking the exact same thing before you said it, Vinny. This is like the Michael Jackson trial. Like the parents were leading their kids but plans to slaughter Michael. They called themselves family. Kids called him daddy. These parents traveled with them, and people have seen Finding Neverland and what happened with those children. We were at that trial for 6 months, and basically that worked with the jury because these parents wanted to be with Michael Jackson. He had this wonderful place for them. He did all these things for the children and their families, and basically it was a conspiracy case too. Remember, that was like we always thought, how could Michael Jackson conspire with anybody when he's having like celebrity animal parties and things like that? That was not of interest to him really, to be in a sophisticated conspiracy, but nevertheless, that was the charge. And the jury just couldn't see it. And part of it was those parents and the blaming the parents.
All right, let's check back in with Julia Janae, find out what's coming up tomorrow in Brooklyn. Julia?
Vinny, Jane Doe number 5 has to come back on the stand for a 3rd day of testimony. She's still on cross, but we expect there's going to be a lengthy redirect as well. And then there will be other witnesses who will take the stand for the prosecution, we're in week 2 of this 4-week trial.
Julia Janae in Brooklyn tonight. Thank you so much.
I'm not a passenger.
Direct, Shiata. Sam OCR 391. Q now, in your paper records, did you keep a record of each time you called in a prescription for a patient? A. No, I did not. Q. Why not? A. It was just the standard of practice at the time that you wouldn't write a note every time you called in a prescription. Q. Now, in your medical practice, do you sometimes receive phone calls from patients? A. Yes. Q. And prior to moving to your electronic system in 2011, did you always create a paper record of such phone calls? A. Not every time, sometimes. Q. Now, turning to when you switched to electronic record keeping in March 2011, what, if any, ways were you able to issue prescriptions to your patients at that time after that time? A. After that time they would be done electronically through opening a telephone encounter, and then you put in the name of the medicine, the dose, all the specifics, and then you would hit send and it would go to the pharmacy. Q. And could you also still at that time, in addition to that, do call-in prescriptions? A. You could also, yes, call-in prescriptions, also. Q. And did you, in fact, do both in your practice? A. Yes, I did both. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. McGrath, Direct, Shiata. Sam OCRRMR 392. Q. All right, now going back to Government Exhibit 237, do you see the first page of the exhibit on your screen? A. Yes, I do. Q. And can you explain to the jury what type of record this first page is? A. It's a written medical record of an encounter or progress note on patient Robert Kelly, dated September 12, 1994. Q. And is this your handwriting on the page? A. Yes, that's my handwriting. Q. Now, directing your attention to that first entry on the page, had you met the defendant before that date? A. No, I had not. Q. So, Was this your first meeting with him? A. Yes, it was. Q. And when you, in your practice, when you meet a patient for the first time, what is your practice as to that first meeting? What do you do? A. The first meeting you take a history first while they're there. That's the history of present illness, preceded by the chief concern or chief complaint. Followed by past medical history, past surgical history, family medical history, review of systems, assessment, and plan, plus or minus some laboratory or imaging or testing results. Q. Now, I want to direct your attention to the first line on the page. What is indicated there? 1, 2, 3, McGrath, direct, Sam OCRR, 393. A 27, black male, singer. Q. And was the defendant 27 years old when he first came to see you? A. Yes. Q. Now, I want to go down to the fourth line. What is indicated there? A. Concerned about chlamydia. No genital urinary symptoms. Q. All right, I'd like to direct your attention to the middle of the page where there is some numbers written. What does that refer to? A. That's his weight, 193 pounds, height, 6 foot 1 inch. Q. And does this record reflect whether you conducted a physical exam during this office visit with the defendant? A. Yes, it does. Q. And what does it reflect in that regard? Did you do a physical exam? A. Yes, it's under those two numbers. The skin exam, normal, skeletal, lymphatic, head, ears, eyes, nose and throat, lungs, heart, abdomen, extremities, neurological and genital urinary. Q. And did you order any tests related to sexually transmitted diseases following your physical exam? A. Yes, I did. Q. And what tests did you order? A. The tests I ordered were a chemistry, which is generally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. McGrath, direct, Shiata. Sam OCRR MRCRR RBR. 394. Kidney and liver, a blood count to screen for, like, anemia and leukemia, and then a chlamydia test and syphilis test. Q. So, those last two are related to STDs? A. Yes, they are. Q. Now, I'm turning to page 8 of the exhibit. Do you recognize what type of document this is? Exhibit published. A. This is a lab result. Q. And do you see where it says drawn date and time? A. Yes. Q. What date is listed there? A. September 13th, 1994. Q. All right. Now, going back to the first page, you had indicated this date here, indicating, is that September 12th or 13th of 1994, now having looked at the lab report? A. I'd say it's September 13th, 1994. Continued on the following page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. K. McGrath, direct / Miss Shiata. Anthony D. Frisolone, at 395. Examination by Miss Shiata, Q. And according to this document, what were the results of those two STD tests that you ordered on September 13, 1994? A. The two tests, chlamydia and syphilis tests, were negative. Q. All right. I'd like to now turn to page 2 of Government Exhibit 237. Is there an entry on this page for an encounter with the defendant on January 23, 1995? A. Yes, there is. Q. And what kind of encounter was this? A. It's a progress note with the chief concern, examination, assessment, and plan. Q. And what was the chief concern on that visit? A penile stinging, 1.5 days, no discharge. No partners, illness, no known drug allergies. Q. And can you tell from this record whether you examined the defendant that day? A. It says exam, and then, decline rectal exam, penis. There was no discharge. Q. What, if any, tests did you order following this exam? A. I ordered a gonorrhea culture and a chlamydia test. Q. I'm going to direct your attention to page 11 of K. McGrath, direct, Anthony D. Frisolone, 396. Government Exhibit 237. Does this indicate the results of those tests? A. Yes, it is T does. Q. And what does it indicate? A positive growth of Neisseria gonorrhea, negative test for chlamydia and syphilis. Q. And so, what does that test result mean with respect to gonorrhea? A. That he had gonorrhea, explaining his chief concern at that visit. Q. What is gonorrhea? A. It's a sexually transmitted bacterial disease. Q. Is it curable? A. It's curable. Q. Now, as we see in this exhibit, the lab issued this report on January 28, 1995, correct? A. Correct. Q. I want to turn back to page 2 of Government Exhibit 237. Is there an encounter on this page from February 7, 1995? A. Yes, there is. Q. And what kind of encounter was that? A progress note. Q, and what, if anything, happened during that encounter? Was that an in-person visit? K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, 397. A. It was an in-person visit. Q, and what happened during that? A. After talking to somebody, I can't make out that name, a patient came today and I treated him because of that result with an Z-Pak and a shot of ceftriaxone, 250 milligrams, intramuscularly, and educated the patient to tell partners and to practice safe sex. Q, and is that indicated over here? A. Yes. Q, and what does that mean? Advise the patient to tell partner and recommend safe sex? A. With sexually transmitted diseases, you have to educate the patient, make sure you treat the patient, and have the patient inform any sexual contacts that they should be seen and treated. Q, meaning, sexual partners? A. Yeah, sexual partners. Q, and why did you advise the defendant in that manner? A. Because I just diagnosed him with gonorrhea. Q, is that your regular practice when you tell a patient that he or she has an STD? A. Yes, that's my regular practice. Q, and by STD, you mean sexually transmitted disease? A. Sexually transmitted diseases, correct. Q, has it always been your regular practice? K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolo, 398. A. It always has been and is my regular practice. Q, I'd like to direct your attention to page 3 of the exhibit. What's reflected for the encounter on May 1st, 1996? A. It's a progress note. Visit. Do you want me to proceed? Q, sure. A chief concern is penile purulent drip, 2 days. Declines cultures, etc., for privacy. Q, and what cultures did you want to run at that point? A. I would only have to take an educated or retrospective guess, chlamydia. Ms. Blank Becker, I would object. The court, make sure you have the microphone on and you can take your mask off, otherwise I can't hear you. Are you objecting? Ms. Blank Becker, yes. The court, when you say you have an educated guess, are you talking about your usual practice or do you know what happened next? The witness, it would be my usual practice to repeat what I just did in the previous visits. The court, okay. 1. K. McGrath, Anthony, 399. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you. Examination by Ms. Shieta. Q, would those be testing for STDs? A. Yes, it would. Q, and that involves cultures, is that correct? The gonorrhea culture, chlamydia, and whatever else I would have thought of at that time. Q, and your notes indicate that the patient, the defendant, declined for privacy reasons, correct? That's correct. Q, now, is there another entry on this page for October 29th? Well, what date is that entry for? A. October 29th, 1988. Q, 88 or 98? A. I'm sorry, 98. Q, and what does that indicate? A chief concern was sore tip of the penis within 24 hours, episodic. No discharge. Exam negative. Impression, urethritis. And I drew the arrow pointing to the treatment above, which is I think was a treatment I gave on May 1st, 1996. Q, so the same treatment? A. I think the treatments for both those visits. Q, what was that treatment for? A most causes of urethritis, most likely, treat chlamydia. K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisell, 400. And gonorrhea. Q, now, I'm going to direct your attention to page 162 of Government Exhibit 237. Was there an office visit by the defendant on this date? A. Yes, there was. Q, and what is the date indicated? A. June 5th, 2000. Q, and what was the complaint on that date? A. The complaint was irritated penis, Saturday evening. Progressed into swelling of the head of penis and red bumps. Itched. Preceded by several hours before wore leather pants. They were black, tied around the waist without underwear for a photo shoot. No dysuria, that's burning on urination. No hematuria, that's blood in the urine. No frequency of urination. Otherwise, feels well. Q, I'm just going to stop you for a moment. That portion that you read, is that what the patient, the defendant, Mr. Kelly, reported to you on that visit? A. And, right, it's what he reported and then what I asked for pertinent positives or negatives. Q, and did you conduct any examination during that visit? A. Yes, there was an examination. Q, and what do your notes reflect regarding that? A. It says, exam glands penis, that's the head of penis. Very small vesicles, those are very small blisters. K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, 401. Q, and what else is reflected on your notes for that visit? A. My impression and plan. Q, and what was that? A. My impression was either contact dermatitis from the black dye in the leather or leather components or herpes simplex virus. Q, is that what's known as a differential diagnosis? A. That is correct, a differential diagnosis for this visit. Q, and what does that mean? A. That means the possibilities based on the history and the exam. Q. And you mentioned contact dermatitis. What is that? That's a skin reaction most common in the community, would be like poison ivy. I was wondering if it was from the dyes in the leather pants or the leather tanning agents causing it. Q. And what was the other possible diagnosis? A herpes simplex virus or genital herpes. Q. And, to be clear, was genital herpes the type of herpes you suspected the defendant had at that point based on your examination? A. Correct. Q. And why did you suspect genital herpes as, well? Why? Did you indicate genital herpes as one of the two diagnoses? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisell, 402. In your differential diagnosis? A. They both were causes of vesicles or blisters or bumps. Q. And what is genital herpes? A. Sexually transmitted disease caused by the herpes simplex virus, usually type 1 or it could be type 2. Q. And so genital herpes, I'm sorry, genital herpes is which type generally? A. It's a viral illness caused by the herpes simplex virus. There's more than with your serotype. Most common is serotype 1. It could also be, most commonly, it's type 2 and could also be type 1. Q. Okay. So, just to be clear, most commonly it's type 2, is that correct? A. I believe it's type 2, I could be wrong on that at this moment. Q. All right. Now, what, if any, tests did you order at this visit? A. The herpes simplex virus culture. Q. And why did you do that? A. Because I suspected herpes simplex causing the irritated penis that progressed into swelling of the head of the penis with red bumps and a physical exam of small vesicles. Q. And, as we just went over, prior to that date, you had previously diagnosed the defendant with an STD, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisellone, F. 403. Q. Gonorrhea, specifically, correct? A. Correct, gonorrhea. Q. Now, is genital herpes curable? A. It is not curable. It can go in remission but generally not curable. Q. Now, you indicated that you ordered or that you conducted a herpes culture, is that right? That's right. Q. And can you explain to the jury what that is, what that means? A. It's where you swab, take, like, a cotton tip swab, swab the lesions on the penis and then put it into a culture media. The results can vary. If you don't get it at the right time, you can get a false negative. I like to catch it early so you get a positive culture. Q. So just to explain a little bit more about what that means. Is timing very important for a herpes virus culture? A timing is very important for a herpes virus culture. Q. Can you explain why that is? A. Because it goes through its changes of the skin from the watery blisters with the red base to the drying blisters and the flaking of the blisters. They're not shedding the virus. The virus is absent by then. The viruses are usually present at the beginning of lesions and even then you might get a negative culture. 1. K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisellone, 404. Q. And does a negative herpes culture mean you don't have herpes? A. No, it doesn't mean you don't have herpes. You may not have captured it. It's a total clinical presentation of the history, the exam, and then in the future response to treatment which helps you confirm the diagnosis. You don't always get a positive culture. Q. And so, how is it that you, as a doctor, diagnose herpes? I think you were just alluding to it. What factors do you look at? A. Over time. If a patient has recurrent skin lesions or penis lesions of the same nature, and then it responds to treatment, then it's genital herpes. Q. Now, I'm going to show you page 20 of Government Exhibit 237. What is this record? A. It's a lab result from June 5, 2000, herpes simplex culture. The result was negative. Q. And did this result come in on June 7, 2000? Yes, it did. It came in on June 7, 2000. Q. And what, if anything, did you conclude from that negative result of the herpes culture? A. That it was not conclusive and that we had to follow the clinical course to see if he called or reported any more future bumps or penis lesions and then try treatment and see. 1, 2, 3, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisellone, 405. If it responds to treatment either intermittently or long-term. Q. So, fair to say, you did not conclude that the defendant did not have herpes based on this test? A. I did not conclude that he did not have herpes, he still could have herpes. Q. Now, given the uncertainty of the negative culture result that you just testified about, as a doctor, what, if any, practice do you have regarding advising your patients regarding such results if they exhibit herpes symptoms? Well, if it's pretty possibly herpes or could be herpes, I, once again, advise the patient to seek medical help when the lesions occur or advise. Inform sexual partners of potential herpes, safe sex, use a condom. Inform your sexual partners so they could make a decision whether or not to have sex with you or not. Q. And is that something you did with the defendant? A. Eventually, I came to the conclusion he had herpes simplex with recurrent calls or complaints about bumps, and he did respond to herpes treatment when they became more common. I recommend regular treatment instead of intermittent treatment. Q. So after this initial office visit in 2000, did you, in fact, hear from the defendant again regarding the same types of symptoms? K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, 406. A. At some point, because I began prescribing valacyclovir, the treatment for herpes, I do recall him making a comment once when I educated him on safe sex, then I should not put it in raw, I should put a hood on it. Q. That's what the defendant said to you? A. At one point. And I said, yes, you should use a condom. Q. What did you understand him to mean? I should not put it in raw. A. That he should have protection on his penis, shouldn't be just uncovered. Q. And what did you understand him to be referring when he used the term a hood? A condom. Q. And this was after you diagnosed the defendant with herpes? A. At some point over the years from June 5, 2000. Ms. Shieta, one moment, Your Honor. The court, okay. A brief pause in the proceedings was held. Q. And, doctor, just to be clear, when you advised the defendant to put on a condom, that was during for purposes of engaging in sexual activity, correct? A. I don't know what other reason you put a condom on for. I'm sorry. Q. Just so we're clear. 1, 2, 3, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, 407. A. I guess we're clear. Q. Now, you testified that you began treating the defendant in 1994 and continued to treat him for, approximately, 25 years, correct? A. Correct. Q. And I believe you also testified that, at some point, you concluded the defendant had contracted genital herpes, is that correct? That's correct. Q. And how did you come to that conclusion? A. Over time, complaints that the patient had concerns about the bumps and that, at times, the medicine would help, so he would call and request a prescription for what he called the blue pill. Q. And what did you understand the defendant to mean when he asked you for the blue pill? A. To treat him for genital herpes. Q. What, if any, well, how did you, in your practice, treat the defendant's genital herpes? Well, initially, as I recall, intermittently until, in general, the rule is if it occurs more than 3 times in a year, you should be taking medicine every day, a pill a day. To reduce shedding and reduce the risk, but not eliminate the risk of spreading it to someone else. But you can reduce the risk by taking medicine every day instead of as needed. K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, 408. Q. And when you say, as needed, what are you referring to? A. As needed for outbreaks. Like, if you just have 1 outbreak a year, or 2 outbreaks a year, that would be appropriate. But if it's more than 3, the rule is, in general, to start them on a daily pill to perhaps not have any more outbreaks, reduce the viral shedding. Q. And, in your time as the defendant's doctor, did there come a time where the defendant had more than 3 outbreaks in a year? Well, I can only assume based on me insisting on taking it once a day and prescribing him at a month at a time with a year of refills to reduce phone calls and to encourage regular treatment. Q. And so, you did, in fact, prescribe the defendant with a medication to treat genital herpes for a 12-month supply. A. Yeah, the phone calls seemed to be frequent for the blue pill, so I would encourage 1 a day, 30 pills, instead of a 5-day treatment course or 10-day treatment course. Q. Now, I think you mentioned the medication Valtrex? A. It's an antiviral agent, valacyclovir. Q. Is valacyclovir the generic name of the drug? A. Yes, it is the generic name. Q. Is Valtrex the brand name? That's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, FAPR, 409. Q. After you first prescribed Valtrex or valacyclovir to the defendant, how did he respond to the treatment? A. It would make the bumps go away. Q. Okay. It would help with the outbreak? Yes, it would. Q. Did you prescribe Valtrex or its generic version to the defendant multiple times? Yes, I did. Q. After you first prescribed Valtrex or its generic version to him, did the defendant continue to ask you to prescribe to for him? Yes, he did. Q. And how did he do so? A. It was a phone call, usually, from one of his employees. Most commonly, from a man named June Brown. Q. And did he also sometimes call you himself? A. He would call himself, yes. Q. Now, you mentioned, well, I'm going to show the witness only what's been marked for identification as Government Exhibit 3. Do you recognize this person? Yes, I do. Q. Who do you recognize it to be? June Brown. 1, 2, 3, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolone, 410. Q. And have you met June Brown personally? Yes. Q. Is that a fair and accurate photo of him? A. It's a fair and accurate photo of him. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit government exhibit 3. Ms. Blank Becker, no objection. The court, that's in evidence. Government's exhibit 3 was received in evidence as of this date. Ms. Shieta, and may we publish it? The court, yes. The above referred to exhibit was published to the jury. Q. And who did you understand June Brown to be with respect to the defendant? A. An employee of Mr. Kelly. Q. Now, sitting here today, do you recall the exact date that you came to the conclusion that the defendant had genital herpes? A. No, I cannot come to the conclusion about the exact date. Q. Based on your review of Government Exhibit 237 prior to your testimony here today, is it fair to say that Government Exhibit 237 includes multiple records indicating that you had reached such a conclusion in the past medical history? 1, 2, 3, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frissell, 411. Portions of various progress notes? A. Yes, in the electronic medical records. Q. And, again, you made that switch to electronic records in March 2011? A. Correct. Q. I want to show you page 124 of Government Exhibit 237. What is the date of this record? A. The date is December 9, 2011. Q. And what, if anything, does this record reference regarding herpes? A herpes is in the past medical history as also along with the current assessments. Q. And what, if any, treatment plan is indicated here? A. Continue Valtrex 500 mg, 1 tablet orally once a day. Q. And does it also indicate that at this time or what, if anything, does it indicate about what medications the defendant was currently taking at that time? A. The current medication was Valtrex 500 mg, 1 tablet once a day. Q. And, again, the Valtrex was prescribed to treat his genital herpes? A. That is correct. Q. And what is indicated under history of present illness? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frissell, 412. A. The reason why he was at the office. I had asked him to come in to register since the office changed to electronic medical records. At the time, I also asked him to have a well adult exam, review of systems, examinations, screening labs, and a flu shot, and he declined. Q. All right. So EMR, that's that switch? A. Electronic medical record. Q. Just for the court reporter, let's make sure we're not talking at the same time, okay. Now, you indicated that at a certain point you changed the way you were prescribing Valtrex to the defendant, correct? A. Yes, that's true. Q. And did you explain why you were doing so to the defendant? A. I don't think I explained it to him, but it was a transition from less phone-ins and more electronic prescriptions. Q. So explain what you mean by that. Well, before electronic records, prescriptions were called in, not always recorded. Electronic medical records allow you to record more prescriptions unless it's at night. Or on a weekend or something where you don't have access to the system. Q. Did you indicate to the defendant that you were 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frissell, 413. Prescribing 11 refills at a time? A. I frequently encouraged him to take it daily instead of as needed. So I frequently would prescribe 30 pills to encourage 1 a day with a year of refills to reduce requests for the pill and encourage him to stay on it long term. Q. And what, if any, based on your treatment of the defendant, what, if any, conclusions did you reach about whether he was, in fact, taking it every day, 12 months a year? A. My conclusion from this one visit gives me the impression he was taking it once a day. Q. Did you ever reach a different conclusion? Not that I can recall. Q. All right. I'm going to show you another page, okay. Before I get to that, going back to how you issued prescriptions for the defendant. Would you both call the pharmacy and issue electronic prescriptions for him? Yes, that would occur. Q. And what was the main pharmacy that you called to issue the defendant's prescriptions? A Walgreens at 641 North Clark in Chicago. Q. And was there a name commonly used to refer to that? Walgreens. A. It was referred to the Rock and Roll McDonald's Walgreens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frissell, 414. Q. Why was it referred to that way? A. It was a rock and roll theme to the McDonald's. And there was also a Hard Rock Cafe across the street. The Walgreens was across the street from those two rock and roll places. Q. Showing the witness only what's been marked for identification, it's Government Exhibit 520. Do you recognize this photograph? Yes, I do. Q. And what is depicted in this photograph? A. It's a McDonald's which was referred to as the Rock and Roll McDonald's in Chicago. Q. And that is what the Rock and Roll McDonald's in Chicago looked like in the past? That's how it looked like in the past, correct. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit Government Exhibit 520. The court, any objection? Ms. Blank Becker, Judge, I simply ask for a date if we could, please. The court, well, it's really a question, is it the McDonald's, did it change or something? The witness, It's since been torn down and rebuilt. The court, this is what it looked like when? 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Anthony D. 415. Guess before it was torn down and rebuilt. The witness, yes. The court, all right. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit it, Your Honor. The court, it's admitted. Government's Exhibit 520 was received in evidence as of this date. Ms. Shieta, thank you, Your Honor. May we publish it? The court, yes. Continued on the next page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 20, K. McGrath, Rivka Teich, 416. By Ms. Shieta, Q. Where was the Walgreens at 641 and Clark in relation to this rock and roll McDonald's? A. To the left and behind across the street, kitty corner. I believe there is another restaurant across, directly across, kitty corner. Q. Did that Walgreens have any special feature? A drive-through was available at that Walgreens. Q. Among the prescriptions that you issued to the defendant at that Walgreens, was Valtrex included as one of those? A. Yes, that was one frequently. Q. Over the years, how often did you issue Valtrex prescriptions to the defendant at that Walgreens? A. It was so often that I had memorized the phone number at that Walgreens since then. Q. Do you remember it now? A. 312, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, by Ms. Shieta, Q. Where was the Walgreens at 641 and Clark in relation to this rock and roll McDonald's? A. To the left and behind across the street, kitty corner. I believe there is another restaurant across, directly across, kitty corner. Q. Did that Walgreens have any special feature? A drive-through was available at that Walgreens. Q. Among the prescriptions that you issued to the defendant at that Walgreens, was Valtrex included as one of those? A. Yes, that was one frequently. Q. Over the years, how often did you issue Valtrex prescriptions to the defendant at that Walgreens? A. It was so often that I had memorized the phone number at that Walgreens since then. Q. Do you remember it now? A. 312, 587, 1416. Q. After you made the switch to electronic records in March 2011, did you also issue prescriptions electronically for the defendant to that Walgreens? A. Yes, I did. Q. Did you also issue prescriptions to the defendant at other pharmacies? A. Yes, other pharmacies. Q. Is there a record in the medical records that you? 1. K. McGrath, Rivka Teich, 417. Provided to the government, Government's Exhibit 237, of the first time you issued a prescription for Valtrex to the defendant to treat his genital herpes? A. I'm not sure of the exact first prescription. I think the earliest. Q. The question I asked is there a record in Government's Exhibit 237 of the first time you did so? A. I can't be sure if it's a yes or no. Ms. Shieta, may I approach, Your Honor? The witness, yes, sure. The court, it's okay with you, okay. Go ahead. By Ms. Shieta, Q. Can you please take a look through Government's Exhibit 237? A. Yes. Q. And let me know when you've had a chance to do so. Witness reviewing document. A. Okay. Q. Does that refresh your recollection as to whether there is any record in Government's Exhibit 237 of the first time you issued a Valtrex prescription for the defendant? A. Yes. Q. What is the answer? A. The earliest date I can see is December 8, 2011. Q. That's an electronic record, correct? 1, 2, 3, K. McGrath, Rivka Teich, 418. That's electronic, correct? Q. As you testified previously, you called in Valtrex prescriptions for the defendant prior to switching to electronic records, correct? Alright. Q. So does that refresh your recollection withdrawn? Are those called in prescriptions prior to the switch to electronic recordings included in the medical records that you provided to the government regarding the defendant? A. No, they are not. Q. Why is that? A. In general, in the written days called in prescriptions weren't recorded all the time. Ms. Shieta, may I approach, Your Honor? The court, yes. Q. I want to direct your attention to page 221 of Government's Exhibit 237. What is this document? A telephone encounter dated August 15, 2012. Q. What does it indicate? A refill, continue Valtrex 500 mg once a day, number 30 with 11 refills. Q. Is that what are you referring to earlier about prescribing a year's worth of Valtrex at a time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, K. McGrath, Rivka Teich, RB 419. A. To encourage regular treatment instead of episodic treatment. Q. That's from August 15, 2012. A. Yes. Q. Again, this was to treat genital herpes? That's correct. Q. I want to direct your attention to page 219 of the same exhibit. What is the date of this record? December 26, 2012. Q. So a little over 4 months later? A. Yes. Q. What is indicated in this record? A. Another refill for 30 days with 11 refills. Q. So another year-long prescription? A. Yes. Q. Just 4 months later? A. Just 4 months later. Q. You indicated earlier that the defendant would sometimes contact you and indicate the bumps are back. Do you recall that testimony? A. Yes. Q. What did you understand him to be referring to when he said the bumps are back? A. That his genital herpes had acted up. Q. So bumps on his genitals? 1, 2, 3, 4. Kamograph. Rivka Teig. 420. A. Yes, bumps on the genitals. Q. Having just looked through each page of this exhibit 237, does it also include indications of prescribing Valtrex in 2015? A. Yes. Q. 2016? A. Yes. Q. 2017? A. Yes. Q. 2019? A. Yes. Q. I'm showing the witness only what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 402. Do you see this exhibit? A. Yes, I do. Q. What is it? A. It's a prescription for Robert Kelly dated March 19, 2007 for Valtrex, 500 mg tablets, quantity 60, with 3 refills before March 1, 2008. Q. Does it indicate who prescribed this medication to the defendant? A. I prescribed the medication for the defendant. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit Government's Exhibit 402. Ms. Blank Becker, no objection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 421. The court, that's in evidence. Government Exhibit 402 was received in evidence. Ms. Shieta, may we publish it? The court, yes. By Ms. Shieta, Q. You indicated this is a prescription for Valtrex 500 mg tablets, correct? That's correct. Q. I think I'm going to zoom in. The 3 refills is before March 18, 08, correct? A. Correct. Q. And the date of the prescription is March 19, 2007, correct? A. Correct. Q. And based on this record, is it your conclusion that you were already treating the defendant for genital herpes by March 19, 2007? A. Yes, that's my conclusion, that I was treating him by March 19, 2007 for genital herpes. Q. In the course of your doctor/patient relationship with the defendant, where did you conduct your examinations of the defendant or where did you treat him? Most of the time at the office, occasionally at his house or studio. Q. Do you have any other offices or addresses associated? 1, 2. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 422. With your medical practice? Not with my private practice. Q. Is there another part of your practice? A. I practice at Northwestern Clinic at a different address on Tuesdays. Q. What address is associated with that clinic that you practice at? 675 North St. Clair Street in Chicago, Illinois. Q. Are you familiar with the address 251 East Huron Street, Chicago, Illinois? Same building around the corner, yes. Q. The same building as your clinic? Same building as the clinic. Q. You mentioned you sometimes treated the defendant at his home or studio, is that right? That's correct. Q. I'm showing you what is in evidence as Government's Exhibit 5028. Do you recognize this? Yes, I do. Q. What is this? A. The defendant's house that the defendant lived in at one time. Q. Have you been to this house? Yes, I have. Q. Where is it located? 1, 2. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 423. A. Olympia Fields, Illinois. Q. Is that a suburb of Chicago? Yes, it is. Q. What part of this residence have you been in inside? A. The entryway, the living room, the den, kitchen, side room, game room, the hallway, and the basement. Q. What, if anything, is located in the basement? A studio. Q. You mentioned that sometimes you treated the defendant at his studio. Was that the studio at Olympia Fields? Yes. Q. Any other studios? A. There is one on, in the earlier days, Larrabee, another one on Ohio Street, then one on Justine. Q. Showing the witness only what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 525. Q. Do you recognize this? Yes, I do. Q. What is this a photograph of? A. Entrance to the studio on Larrabee. Q. That was a studio the defendant used? Yes. Q. Did you personally go to the studio? Yes. Q. Is this a fair and accurate photograph of what the studio? 1, 2, 3, 4. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 424. Looked like at the time you went to it? Yes. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit Government's Exhibit 525. Q. Ms. Blank Becker, no objection. The court, all right. You can publish it? Government Exhibit 525, Q, was received in evidence. By Ms. Shieta, Q. I'm going to show the witness only what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 505, A. Do you recognize this? Yes. Q. What do you recognize this to be? A studio on Ohio Street. Q. Is that a studio you personally visited the defendant in? A. Yes. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit government's Exhibit 505, A. Ms. Blank Becker, no objection. The court, it's in. You can publish it? Ms. Shieta, thank you, Your Honor. Government Exhibit 505, A, was received in evidence. By Ms. Shieta. 1-2, Kamagra, Rivka Teig, 425. Q. On the occasions when you treated the defendant outside of your office, what led you to do so? A. I would get a call from usually one of his employees that Robert would need to be seen, occasionally from Robert himself. Q. And did you in fact go when you received these calls? A majority of the times, yes. Q. What time of day would you go? A. Usually evening, 7 p.m. or later. Q. During the course of your 25-year doctor/patient relationship with the defendant, did he have health insurance? A. Yes, he did. Q. Did he pay for your medical services using health insurance? A. No, he did not. Q. Did he pay for your medical services at all? A. No, he did not. Q. Over the course of your 25-year relationship with the defendant, did you learn that he was a successful singer? A. Yes, I did. Q. In addition to your relationship with the defendant as his doctor, what, if any, other relationship did you have with the defendant? A social relationship. Q. Can you describe that relationship to the jury? 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Direct, Rivka Teig, RBR, RMR, 426. A. My wife and I at times would go to his house for dinner, children's birthday party, or special parties at the house. Q. Did you also see the defendant socially at other locations? A. Occasionally at a restaurant or one of his concerts. Q. How about at his studios? A. We'd be invited to listen to music at his studio, that's correct. Q. You mentioned parties you attended, where did those take place? A. The parties I recall were at the Olympia Fields house. Q. Did you attend the defendant's 52nd birthday party? A. That was attended. Q. Where did that take place? A Justine studio. Q. When you say the Justine studio, are you referring to the street the studio was on? A. Yes, the studio that is on Justine Street. Q. When did that 52nd birthday party take place? A January 8, 2019. Q. You and your wife attended that? A. Yes. Q. Showing the witness only what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 503, A. Do you recognize what is depicted in this photo? 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 427. That's the building studio on Justine Street. Q. Is this a fair and accurate photo of that building? A. Yes, it is. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit Government's Exhibit 503, A. Ms. Blank Becker, no objection. The court, it's in evidence. You can publish it? Government Exhibit 503, A, was received in evidence. By Ms. Shieta, Q. Is this the studio where you attended the defendant's 52nd birthday? A. Yes. Q. You mentioned you also attended some of the defendant's concerts, is that right? A. That is right. Q. Approximately how many of the defendant's concerts have you attended over the years? A. At least 10, perhaps 12. Q. So 10 to 12? A. Yes. Q. Approximately? A. Yes. Q. Did you attend those concerts alone or with someone else? A. With my wife. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 428. Q. What, if any, relationship did your wife have with the defendant? A. I'd call it a friendship, or a mother-like friendship, or a caring relationship. Q. Where did most of those concerts that you and your wife take place? A. The majority were in the Chicago. Q. Did you ever travel to attend any of the defendant's concerts? A. Yes. Q. Where did those take place? A. New York, just outside of St. Louis in St. Charles, Missouri, Las Vegas, Los Angeles, Atlanta. Q. Did you attend a concert in Nashville? A. In Nashville, yes. Q. Were the tickets to those concerts provided to you by the defendant for free? A. Yes. Q. Who paid for your travel to those destinations? A. He paid for it, and sometimes I paid for it. Q. When you paid for it, what were the circumstances of that? A. The St. Charles concert, I just paid for it on my own. 2 other times I went to check out at the desk and his employees hasn't made arrangements, so I just paid for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 429. Q. Had you been expecting it to be paid for? A. I had been expecting it to be paid for, but it wasn't. Ms. Shieta, 1 moment, Your Honor. I want to show the witness only what is marked for identification as Government's Exhibit 336, A. The court, I'm going to ask, after this to find a convenient time to break. Ms. Shieta, I'm about to be done, Your Honor. The court, great. By Ms. Shieta, Q. Do you recognize this photo? A. Yes, I do. Q. What do you recognize it to be? A picture of myself and Mr. Kelly. Ms. Shieta, I move to admit government's exhibit 336, A. Ms. Blank Becker, no objection. The court, okay. That's in evidence. Ms. Shieta, may we publish it? The court, yes. Government exhibit 336, A, was received in evidence. The court, when I say it's in evidence, Ms. Shieta, sorry. By Ms. Shieta. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 430. Q. Is that you depicted where I'm pointing on the right side? A. Yes, that is me. Q. And is this the defendant? A. Yes. Q. Looking at this photograph, can you tell where it was taken? A. I think a cigar bar. Q. When is the last time you were at a cigar bar with the defendant? A. Sometime in 2019, I don't recall the exact date. Q. How was it that you ended up at a cigar bar with the defendant? A. I got a phone call from my wife to meet at a cigar bar. Q. What is your wife's name? A. Jean. Q. Same last name as you? A. Yes, Jean McGrath. Q. Fair to say this was a social event? A. Yes, fair to say. Q. When, if at all, did you stop being the defendant's primary care physician? A. In early 2019. Q. After the cigar bar or before? A. Whenever his apprehension occurred. 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 431. Q. Sometime in 2019? A. Sometime in 2019. Q. When was the last time you had spoken to the defendant? A. To the best of my recollection, that would have been at this gathering, social event. Q. At the cigar bar? A. Yes. Ms. Shieta, no further questions. The court, do you have a lot or do you want to go tomorrow? Ms. Blank Becker, half hour, judge. The court, I think we'll wait until tomorrow then. Ms. Shieta, can I just mention one thing at sidebar? Continued on the next page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, sidebar, Rivka Teig, RBR 432. The following sidebar conference was held outside the hearing of the jury. Ms. Shieta, I just thought I'd mention this. I don't know if anything can be done. He is scheduled to be flying back at 7 a.m. tomorrow to get back to his medical practice. I don't know if it's possible if the jury is willing to stay longer. The court, can you stay longer? The court reporter, yes. The court, you only have half hour? Ms. Blank Becker, can we strike the apprehension part that he said? The court, I guess we can. I think they figured out that he got apprehended, he's here. Ms. Blank Becker, I agree. The court, it's up to you. If you decide you want to highlight it, let me know. Let's let it go for now. Continued on the next page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, McGrath, Cross, Rivka Teig, RP 433. In open court, jury present. The court, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask your indulgence. Apparently the witness has got to be out of town. I'm told that the cross-examination isn't very long, so if you'll bear with me, we'll finish the witness today. Anybody have a problem with that? All right. Go ahead, Ms. Blank Becker. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you, Judge. Cross-examination by Ms. Blank Becker. Q. Good afternoon. A good afternoon. Q. Dr. McGrath, my name is Attorney Nicole Blank Becker. The court, you can take your mask off. Q. My name is Nicole Blank Becker. I'll be asking you a bunch of questions about the stuff that you had just spoken about. Okay. Okay. Q. Dr. McGrath, you indicated that you had been treating Mr. Kelly for about 25 years, is that fair to say? A. Yes. Q. You think you also indicated you started seeing him somewhere around 1994, is that correct? That's correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, McGrath, Rivka Teig, 434. Q. When the government was just going over with you, when was the first time that you were able to make some type of the first time you had impression that Mr. Kelly had potentially had herpes? I believe you indicated that that must have been sometime between starting December 8th of 2011. Does that sound right? A. That sounds right, until the other prescription was shown to me, which is 2007. Continued on next page. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, McGrath, Samos, 435. Examination continues by Ms. Blank Becker. Q. Yes. I apologize, right. And then there was one in 2007. Prior to 2007, so we're talking, and I'm not that good at math, from 1994 to 2007, the medical records that were turned over, there was no notes or past history or anything in there that had anything to do with herpes, correct? A. Correct. Ms. Shieta, objection, misstates the evidence. The court, well, you can ask, clear it up on redirect. Ms. Shieta, yes, Your Honor. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. Okay, so maybe there was the word herpes, because maybe you would have to test for it. The court, you know, it is really much easier if you just put a question to the witness. Don't make a long statement, just ask him a question. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. So, when it comes to herpes and, obviously, that's the hot topic, there's herpes, and you started to talk about there's different ways to diagnosis, there's two different kinds of, let's call it, strains of herpes, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, McGrath, Sam OCRR, 436. A. There's different strains of herpes, correct? Q. And when you were talking earlier about trying to figure out which strain someone would have, you have to actually do a blood test, is that correct? A. At this time. Contemporaneously in 1994, we did not do a blood test. Q. And what did you do? A culture. Q. And that's what you were describing earlier, correct? A. Correct. Q. Thank you. Now, in the medical records that we have, there's actually no positive cultures, correct? A. Correct. Q. For herpes, correct. A. Correct. Q. And that covers the genital herpes and / or oral herpes, correct? A. Correct. Q. And there were some discussions also about testing done for other venereal diseases, correct? A. Correct. Q. And there was a discussion, well, gonorrhea was one of the things that was tested for, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, McGrath, Sam OCR, 437. Q. And syphilis, as well? A. Yes. Q. Now, are those bacteria infections? A gonorrhea is a bacteria, syphilis is not. Q. And how about herpes? A herpes is a virus. Q. Not bacteria infection then, correct? A. Correct. Q. Do you remember what year the testing for herpes changed from the cultural to the blood taking? A. No, I do not know the exact year. Q. Sure, okay. Was it just a couple years ago or was it a long time ago? Could you give us that? A. I said I wasn't, I'm not sure. Q. No idea? A. No idea. Q. Okay, got it. You mentioned earlier that you actually knew Walgreens' phone number by heart, correct? A. That is correct. Q. And you have plenty of other patients that would get prescriptions from there as well, is that correct? A. Some patients would use that pharmacy. Q. Now, the words that you used in your medical notes. 1, 2, 3, McGrath, Sam OCR, 438. Regarding herpes was that it was your impression, is that fair to say? A. Assessment, that would be more fair to say. Q. Okay. So, in one of the records that the government had shown you, it actually says it's your impression. That doesn't ring a bell? A. No, but the letter A in my notes is for assessment. I'll go along with the word impression also. Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, overruled. I mean to you, does it mean the same thing? The witness, I would need more time to think, they're pretty close. The court, all right. The witness, I'll go along with either one. The court, all right. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. Now, there's a difference between an impression and a final diagnosis, is that correct? A. They sometimes can be the same. Q. Sure, they could end up being the same, correct? Hopefully, they'd be close to the same at the initial. Q. So, how do you get from your impression to the final? McGrath, Cross, Sam OCRR, 439. Diagnosis typically? A combination of the history, the exam, and the response to therapy. Q. Specifically, when we're talking about something like herpes, how, and I understand you've indicated that there's some things you could visually see, but with regards to testing, how do you get from the impression to the final diagnosis? A combination of all those things I just mentioned, the history, the exam, and the laboratory supportive data, sometimes imaging and response to therapy. Q. Is it fair to say, Dr. McGrath, that from your experience in treating Mr. Kelly, sitting here in court today, you cannot say that 100% he has herpes? A. I feel that 100% he has herpes. Q. Okay. Are you saying you feel as in, you know, I feel like? It's freezing in here, Ms. Shieta, objection. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. But someone else might not feel that way? A. Is that a question? Ms. Blank Becker, we have to wait for the judge. The court, oh, you were asking me. Ms. Shieta, there's an objection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, McGrath, Sam OCRR MRC, 440. The court, oh, I didn't hear it. You guys have to use the microphone. Ms. Shieta, I apologize. The court, the objection is sustained as to form. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. When someone is diagnosed in your experience, let's say, with, God forbid, AIDS, usually there's testing done, correct, in order to determine if they have AIDS. A. Regarding AIDS, yes. Q. Okay. And the testing is done to confirm whether or not medically they have it, correct? A with AIDS, Q, yes. A, it helps support the diagnosis. It helps confirm the diagnosis of AIDS. Q, confirm the diagnosis, yes. All right, so if you got, excuse me, if a patient had a test come back and the results were negative, you could say you know 100% this person does not have AIDS, correct? A, I'm not sure about the false negatives with AIDS, so I can't answer that on the base of my knowledge. I can't answer that question regarding AIDS on the base of my knowledge. Q, so, there's always the possibility of false negatives, is that what you're saying? 1, 2, 3, McGrath, Sam OC, 441. The court, I think he said he doesn't know. A, you could repeat the question for me and I could re-answer it? Q, sure. My understanding was that you're saying even though a test can come back negative for AIDS, there's still this possibility of a false negative, so you wouldn't say 100% that someone had AIDS. Well, there's other tests for AIDS. There's viral counts. And it's not that simple, so I can't answer that. I don't have the knowledge of AIDS. Q, Dr. McGrath, I understand that you earlier said that you think that that's what he has. Ms. Shieta, objection. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q, is that a common the court? Well, sustained as to form, but you can rephrase the question. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you, Judge. Q, that you believe 100% that he has or yeah, has herpes, correct? A, I believe that 100% based on his concern, the one exam I had, the recurrence of the description of the lesions, and the response to therapy. Q, okay, doctor. 1, 2, 3, McGrath, Sam OCRRMR, 442. You never told him to come in and come see you, perhaps, during an outbreak or the shedding that you talked about earlier, so that he could get tested and you could officially, say, stamp those medical records and say, yes, he actually has this? A, I don't recall if I ever asked him to come in during an outbreak. Q, nor did he ever come to see you when he was claiming he had an outbreak, correct? A, I feel he didn't need to, if he responded so quickly to the treatment. Q, well, the treatment, I think what you're referring to is Valtrex, right? A, the treatment is Valtrex. Q, yes. Well, Valtrex can be used to treat other things. Besides herpes. Such as? Q, you don't get to ask me the questions. A, I know, but the court, well, the witness, sorry. The court, that's okay. Can it be used to treat things other than herpes? Have you prescribed it for other things other than herpes? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, McGrath, Sam OCRRM, 443. The witness, I prescribed it for herpes simplex, cold sores, herpes genitally, genital herpes, and herpes zoster. Herpes, herpes, herpes. Q, okay, herpes, 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 but, doctor, there's different types. We just discussed that, right? There's different kinds of strands of herpes, correct? Different serotypes. Herpes, 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 1, 2, I think there's up to 6 or 7 or 8. Q, okay, and I'm not a medical doctor, but, Dr. McGrath, are you saying that someone who has herpes, person A, and then we've got person B over here who has herpes, they automatically have the same kind of herpes? A, is that a question, or Q, that is a question? I can ask it again, if you like. Yes, ask me again, please. Continued on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisolo, 444. Examination by Ms. Blank Becker, continuing. Q, this is a question I can ask to again if you like. A, ask me again, please. Q, person A has herpes, person B has herpes. Are you telling this jury that that means they have the same herpes, the same type herpes? 1, 2. Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, well, overruled. Can you answer the question? The witness, they may have the same kind of herpes, they may not. Q, right. 50/50ths, right? The court, well, I'll sustain the objection to that. Put another question to the witness. Q, you're saying, yes, they might have the same type and they might not. Is that fair to say? Is that what you just said? That's correct. The court, who are we talking about? 3 different patients. Is that what you understand the question to be? The witness, I'm confused with the question. K. McGrath, cross, Anthony D. Frisolo, 445. The court, let's just clarify what the testimony is. Is your question that why don't you rephrase a question so the doctor can answer it? Ms. Blank Becker, sure. Q, there is genital herpes, right? Yes. Q, and how would you say it is a subcategory? It's a type of herpes. What is the proper? A, it's when the herpes virus is present on the genitals. It doesn't matter which of the herpes serotypes it is. It would be genital herpes no matter which one it was. Q, got it? There's other kinds of herpes, right, than just genital? Right. Q. So there's oral, right? Usually on the lips, not the mouth. Q. I apologize, I should have said on the lips. And those are two different strains, is that correct? A. They may or may not be. It can be the same strain. Q. Okay. They could be the same strain or they cannot be. Is that what you said, right? A. Yes. Q. Additionally, would when a patient comes in, and ultimately, you determine that you believe they have herpes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Camograph, Anthony, 446. You do your testing, are you able to tell? You can't actually tell them who gave it to them, is that fair to say? That's fair to say, yes. Q. Herpes could lie dormant, I think you even indicated that earlier, for a long period of time, is that correct? Yes. Q. And then someone might not have an outbreak and we're talking it could be years, is that fair to say? Yes. Q. All right. And so, if someone came into your office, they had herpes and they told you that they were intimate with one person, that would help you try to figure out the who is, right? Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, well, is it part of your job as a doctor to figure out who transmitted the herpes to your patient? The witness, no, it is not. Part of my job is to instruct the patient to call their sexual contacts and inform them of the diagnosis. It's not my job to call the patients who he had sex with and transfer he or she or whoever went to from who to who. Q. So you don't ask him questions and try to ascertain if he's having slept with multiple people that you want to make sure he protect? 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisell, 447. What's the question? Q. In discussing with your patients, and obviously, specifically, Mr. Kelly, you never discussed with him about who is this other person, maybe I should give them medication as well? Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, overruled. Did you ever have that conversation with Mr. Kelly? The witness, I had the conversation to inform his partners. The court, you told him to inform his partners. The witness, that was in the medical record. Inform partners. Q. Got it? So the answer to my question is no? A. Repeat the question. Q. I'm going to move on because I can't even remember that one at this point. Dr. McGrath, when it comes to genital herpes, that is or is not a bacterial disease. A. It's not a bacterial disease. It's a viral disease. Q. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. A. It's a viral disease. Q. You indicated that you also had a friendship with Mr. Kelly, is that fair to say? A. Yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisellone, 448. Q. Socially as well? A. Yes. Q. Correct. All right. And, in fact, you'd been to a number of his different studios to treat him, is that fair to say, or to see him if he's not feeling well? A. Yes. Q. Okay. And how often would you say, often that you've been to these studios, or just once or twice? A. In 25 years, not often. Q. Okay. And I think you said so you've been to 3 different locations, is that right, studios? A. I'll have to read that. I to add up the studios. Larrabee, the House Studio, Ohio Street, and Justine. That adds up to 4. Q. I apologize. You've been to 4. Thank you. And when you've gone to those studios, there have been other people there. A. Yes. Q. Men, women, one or other both. A. Yes, as I recall. Q. Ever see any underage girls there? Not that I recall. I didn't check their ages. Q. You didn't ask them for their license. A. No. Q. Not your job when you go there, huh? All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frissello, 449. Apologize. Doctor, did you notice were there bedrooms at any of these studios that you would go to that you noticed? A. I don't recall seeing any bedrooms. Q. And was there any activities there were when you were there? I believe the testimony was that sometimes you'd go later at night, is that fair to say? A. Yes. Q. And sometimes, you'd have to kind of wait there for a while, is that fair to say? A. Yes. Q. And when you were waiting, Mr. Kelly was working on his music, is that fair to say? A. I don't know what he was always doing while I was waiting. Q. Not always. So you never went into the studio and listened to him while you were waiting to get a chance to speak with him? A. I would wait and wait until he wanted to see me. And then sometimes it was just to listen to some music that he was proud of or wanted me to hear it. Q. Okay. Thank you. Timing wise, are we talking 10 o'clock at night sometimes you'd go there? A. I would unlikely get there at 10 o'clock. I may be there. 1, 2, 3, 4, K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frissello, 450. Until 10 o'clock. If it was much longer, I would leave because I go to bed at 9 p.m. usually. Q. Okay. When you would be there in the evening hours, were you aware of any Ms. Blank Becker? Strike that. Q. There are people that were working there with Mr. Kelly at the same time when you were there. Is that fair to say? A. Yes. Q. Okay. He wasn't usually just there by himself. True. A. Yes. Q. Okay. He had engineers and so forth that were there. Correct. A. Yes. Q. And you've met some of them. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. All right. And when you had the chance to finally speak with Mr. Kelly, it wasn't like he continued to work after you left. Is that fair to say? Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, sustained. Q. When you would go, oftentimes I think you said there's different times where you'd go to his house. Is that true? A. Yes. Q. And, in fact, you'd go. I believe you indicated sometimes for parties. Is that true? 1, 2, 3, 4. K. Anthony D. Frisell, 451. A. Yes. Q. You also went for there was the time where Mr. Kelly's daughter's dog passed away and he had a funeral for the dog. Do you remember being there for that? A. I remember being there for a dog funeral. Q. And there was a lot of people there for that. Is that correct? A. How do you define a lot? Q. Okay. The house that he lived in there, was it how many square feet, and just a guesstimate, would you say it is? A. I would not know how many square feet in the house. Q. Okay. A. I'm not familiar with square feet in homes at all. I couldn't tell you the square feet here. Q. Well, if we pretend that this is a house, the courtroom that we're in right now, would you say that Mr. Kelly's home was about this size? Ms. Shieta, objection, Your Honor. The court, I don't understand the relevance. Let's move on to something else. Q. When you would go to parties at Mr. Kelly's house, there was music playing, I assume, right? A. There was often music playing. Q. Okay. DJ a lot of times as well? 1, 2, 3, 4. K. McGrath, Anthony D. Frisellone, at 452. A. Occasionally, yes, DJ. Q. Loud music. A. I don't know the volume or the decibels. I'm sorry, I can't be sure of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, RB 453. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. Okay. So you never had to leave because you were like, this music is too loud, I got to get out of here? Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, sustained. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. When you went to his house for whatever reason it was, either for work medically, or social gatherings, do you remember ever seeing any underage girls? Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, I feel like we went over this already. Do you remember seeing anybody? The witness, no, I don't remember seeing what I would consider underage girls. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. This is at the house, correct? A. At the house. Q. Yes, thank you. When you would go, whether at the house or to the studio, did you go and like in your doctor's coat that oftentimes we see or we envision a doctor wearing when they treat their patients? A. No. Q. No. You never would go to his home and treat other people at his house, correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, RB 454. A. No. Q. Okay. And you certainly wouldn't do, you wouldn't have one of his guests sitting there and you wouldn't be doing a gynecological exam at his home of one of his female guests, is that correct? That's correct. Q. That sounds preposterous, correct? Ms. Shieta, objection. The court, sustained. Q. You indicated earlier that the who part is not your job, right? Who else he was having sex with, correct? A. Clarify the question for me. Q. I'm sorry. A. What is the specific question for me? Q. You said earlier that the who we can't determine the who based on whatever information you have with Mr. Kelly, you have no idea who gave that to him, correct? A. Correct. Q. You spoke this isn't the first time you had to testify about this, is that correct? A. How do you define testify? Q. Well, you the court, if you want to ask about a statement he made at a prior time, you can do that. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 455. Q. You had to take an oath before, correct, and you were asked questions, there was a stenographer taking it all down and you had to answer the questions. A. Yes. Ms. Shieta, objection as to form. The court, did you testify at another proceeding? The witness, yes. The court, next question. Q. That proceeding occurred on April 17th. I'm making sure I got the right date. The court, April of 2020. Ms. Blank Becker, 2019. The court, 2019, all right. Q. Do you remember when you were asked some questions that you specifically and I'll get that? The court, let's do the form correctly. Were you asked the following question and did you give the following answer? Ms. Blank Becker, thank you, Judge. Q. Were you asked several questions similar to what you're being asked about today? A. Yes. Q. And that was a result of you being at work one day and secret agents Ms. Shieta. Objection. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, 456. The court, sustained. Q. Special agents the court, sustained. If you want to direct him to a question and answer, you may do so. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you. Q. You ended up turning over all the medical records that you had to the government, correct? A yes. Q. In fact, to the United States government you gave them, obviously we can't count, but whatever you had, correct? A yes. Q. And that was a result of a special agent coming to the court. Can I see counsel at the side? Continued on the next page. 1, 2, 3, sidebar, Rivka Teig, 457. The following sidebar conference was held outside the hearing of the jury. The court, they were subpoenaed. Ms. Shieta, he was served with a subpoena. The court, he testified to that on direct. Ms. Blank Becker, I heard you say that when you read the report it says that Ms. Shieta, they came there and served him with a subpoena, and he thereafter complied with it? Ms. Blank Becker, yes. The court, there is nothing nefarious about that. It's a properly served subpoena. Ms. Blank Becker, I'm not saying the court, it's been a long day. He had to answer the subpoena. You can't suggest to the jury that it was improper. It's not a jury question. I don't understand the point. Ms. Blank Becker, Judge, the point is my information that I have is that he was again, this is just information I'm told that he was forced to turn over. He wanted to get Mr. Kelly's signature first. The court, but the thing is, you can't litigate the proprietary of the subpoena in front of the jury. Ms. Blank Becker, I wasn't going to say it's a bad subpoena. 1, 2, 3, 4, sidebar, Rivka Teig, RBR, 458. The court, let me finish. It could be that the subpoena wasn't properly served, but there is another form to do that, and it isn't here. I don't want to have any more questioning about that. Is there something else you want to say? Ms. Shieta, just that it was properly served. He complied with it. Under the law, a patient's signature is not required for grand jury subpoena. Ms. Blank Becker, I agree with you. The court, I don't think there is any point. Just because somebody feels that way. Move on to something else. End of side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, RBR, 459. In open court, jury present. The court, next question, please. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you, Judge. By Ms. Blank Becker, Q. Dr. McGrath, is it fair to say did you ever have a goatee? A. No. Q. Dr. McGrath, did you ever have a beard? A. No. Q. Dr. McGrath, you indicated that there were times that you went to concerts and Mr. Kelly paid for the airfare, is that correct? That's correct. Q. And he would also leave tickets for the show so you could go there and will call, correct? A. Yes. Q. And he would pay for those too obviously, right? A. Yes. Q. So that was common, is that correct? A. Not that common, no, that's not correct. Q. Okay. So you had to pay for your own tickets to go to the concerts? A. I thought you meant common like frequently. Q. No, sorry. You would come, you would go, other than I believe you indicated a few times you had to pay for your own. 1, 2, 3, K. McGrath, Rivka Teig, RBR, 460. Airline ticket? A room, yes. Not airline, ticket hotel room. Q. Okay, so the airline ticket was A. I paid for that once or twice, yes. Q. Okay. The times when you didn't pay for that, you dealt with an assistant of Mr. Kelly's who set it up for you, is that correct? A. Yes. 1, 2, 3, McGrath, Sam OCR, 461. Examination continuing by Ms. Blank Becker, Q. And the assistant would ask you questions about what day works for you, hours, and, ultimately, you guys would figure out your schedule, is that fair to say? A. Yes. Q. And if there was an issue with you not being able to get the tickets at will call or so forth, you had a number or someone you could call, is it that same person to try to figure out? A. There was never an issue at will call, so Q. Okay. A. I didn't have to call anybody. Q. Okay. Did you have a number of anybody you could call if you needed to? A. I'm sure I had a phone number at the time. I don't remember who or what number. Q. Okay, how about Diana Copeland, do you know her name? A. I've heard that name, yes. Q. You've seen her at your doctor's office, correct? A. Not as a patient. Q. No, not as a patient. My question was you've seen her, correct? A. I've seen her. 1, 2, 3, 4, McGrath, Sam OCR, 462. Q. And you're aware that she was an assistant of Mr. Kelly, correct? A. I'm aware of that. Ms. Blank Becker, Judge, may I just have a moment? The court, sure. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you. Pause. Ms. Blank Becker, thank you, Judge. Thank you, Dr. McGrath. I don't have any further questions. The court, any redirect? Ms. Shieta, very briefly, Your Honor, I promise. The court, when I shake my head and go like this, indicating. Redirect examination by Ms. Shieta, Q. Dr. McGrath, did you diagnose the defendant with genital herpes? A yes. Q. Is there any doubt in your mind that the defendant had genital herpes? A no. Q. After you diagnosed the defendant with genital herpes, did you prescribe him Valtrex? A yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, McGrath, Sam OCRR, 463. Q. Was that to treat genital herpes? A yes. Q. Did you prescribe him Valtrex to treat anything else? A no. Q. After you diagnosed the defendant with herpes, did you inform him that he had herpes? A yes. Q. And did you advise him to let his sexual partners know of his diagnosis and to practice safer sex? A yes. Q. Is there any doubt in your mind about that? A no. Ms. Shieta, no further questions. The court, any recross? Ms. Blank Becker, no, Judge, thank you. The court, thank you so much, Doctor. You can step down. Witness excused. The court, thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying late. I am just going to give you the usual instructions. Please don't look anything up about the case. Don't read any news reports. Don't do any research on your own. Report to me any effort by anyone to influence you improperly or to influence another juror improperly. 1. Proceedings. Sam OCRRMR 464. Have a great night. I also want to thank our court reporters for staying late as well. Have a good night, everybody. The courtroom deputy, all rise. A juror, what time? The court, well, you'll get the instructions about when to come, usual time. Jury exits. The court, all right, everybody can have a seat. I think I am just going to have Donna dismiss that juror without the need of bringing her out here. I think everybody agrees with that. Yes, from the defense. Ms. Geddes, it's fine, Your Honor. The court, okay. Ms. Blank Becker, no objections, Judge. The court, the only thing I'm wondering about, though, is if I need to give her an instruction about speaking to other jurors or anything like that. M.R. Canick, I think you do, Your Honor. We would make that request. The court, and then can I just see one of the marshals over at the sidebar? Alternate juror number 3 enters the courtroom. 1, 2, 3, 4, proceedings. Sam OCRRMR 465. The court, just in the front row is fine, just have a seat. That's perfect. Okay, this is alternate juror number 3. I understand from Ms. Green that you need to go to your job in order to get benefits and things like that. Is that right? Alternate juror no. 3, correct. The court, and this would be a hardship for you. Alternate juror no. 3, there's going to be no income for the next 4 weeks and I'll have no benefits. The court, no benefits and no income, so I am going to excuse you from this jury. I am going to give you some instructions. Do not speak to any of your fellow jurors about the case, and do not speak to anybody else about the case. Okay. Alternate juror no. 3, okay. The court, we are keeping your name confidentially and for the reasons I described before. Okay. Alternate juror no. 3, okay. The court, so, you're excused from the case. Alternate juror no. 3, thank you. Alternate juror number 3 is excused. The court, all right, anything else that anyone? 1, 2, 3, 4, proceedings, Sam OCRRM 466. Needs to raise. I think we've got to let everybody go. Ms. Geddes, no, Your Honor. The court, all right, see you tomorrow. Matter adjourned to Friday, August 20th, 2021 at 9:30 a.m. 000000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, Sam OCRRMRC 467. INDEX. Witness page. Jerhonda Johnson Pace direct examination by Ms. Geddes, 215 cross-examination by M.R. Canick 227 redirect examination by Ms. Geddes 353 recross-examination by M.R. Canick 363 redirect examination by Ms. Geddes 366 recross-examination by M.R. Canick 367. Garrick Amschel direct examination by Ms. Geddes 369 cross-examination by M.R. Farinella 378. Chris McGrath, MD direct examination by Ms. Shieta 383 cross-examination by Ms. Blank Becker 433 redirect examination by Ms. Shieta 462. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 468. EXHIBITS. Defendants Exhibit D 290. Defendants Exhibit E 291. Government's Exhibit 48 386. Government's Exhibit 12 387. Government's Exhibit 237 389. Government Exhibit 402 421. Government Exhibit 525, Q, 424. Government Exhibit 505, A, 424. Government Exhibit 503, A, 427. Government Exhibit 336, A, 429. $. $15 1, $252:6 $250 2, $286:18, $286:23 $4,000 1, $301:12 $50 1, $283:24.
And that is the end of that. Thank you for listening. Please make sure you hit that like button on your way out. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. And if you would like to donate to the RSK Trial Transcript Fund, you could donate to me, Cash App, DivaDivineLight, also Robert Keller 83. The information is on the bottom of the screen. And have a wonderful day. Peace.